Ho'oponopono is defined in the Hawaiian dictionary as mental cleansing, family conferences in which relationships were set right through prayer, discussion, confession, repentance, and mutual restitution and forgiveness. Literally, ho'o is a particle used to make an actualizing verb from the following noun, as would to before a noun in English. Here it creates a verb from the noun pono, which is defined as goodness, uprightness, morality, moral qualities, correct or proper procedure, excellence, well-being, prosperity, welfare, benefit, true condition or nature, duty. Moral, fitting, proper, righteous, right, upright, just, virtuous, fair, beneficial, successful, in perfect order, accurate, correct, eased, relieved, should, ought, must, necessary. Ponopono is defined as to put to rights, to put in order or shape, correct, revise, adjust, amend, regulate, arrange, rectify, tidy up, make orderly or neat. Thank you, Wikipedia. So today we're going to talk about the Ho'oponopono method, and I think that we're going to transcend a little bit into the law of attraction because I think that it very directly ties together very well. So before we get into the discussion, I thought I would read you a little article that I read a couple of years ago, and I stuck it on my Lightworkers blog. If you're ever on lightworkers.org, which I think is a really, really great site, I am Holly-Linden. So this is an article by Joe Vitale, or Joe Vitale, I'm not totally 100% how his name is said, who is an author. And he tells a wonderful story about doing healing inside of ourselves in order to affect a change on the outside. You know, I like to call the Ho'oponopono method, AKA the method by which I learned that everything is my creation and my responsibility, and this is heavy for some people because we don't want the responsibility of what's happening on the planet. But let me read this to you. And this was written by Joe Vitale talking about this doctor, Dr. Ehale Akala-Hulen. I believe that's how it's said. It's close, probably. All right. 2 years ago, I heard about a therapist in Hawaii who cured a complete ward of criminally insane patients without ever seeing any of them. The psychologist would study an inmate's chart and then look within himself to see how he created that person's illness. As he improved himself, the patient improved. When I first heard this story, I thought it was an urban legend. How can anyone heal anyone else by healing himself? How could even the best self-improvement master cure the criminally insane? It didn't make any sense. It wasn't logical, so I dismissed the story. However, I heard it again a year later. I heard that the therapist had used a Hawaiian healing process called Ho'oponopono. I had never heard of it, yet I couldn't let it leave my mind. If the story was at all true, I had to know more. I had always understood total responsibility to mean that I am responsible for what I think and do. Beyond that, it's out of my hands. I think that most people think of total responsibility that way. We're responsible for what we do, not what anyone else does, but that's wrong. The Hawaiian therapist who healed those mentally ill people would teach me an advanced new perspective about total responsibility. His name is Dr. Ehale Akala-Hulen. We probably spent an hour talking on our first phone call. I asked him to tell me the complete story of his work as a therapist. He explained that he worked at Hawaii State Hospital for 4 years. That ward where they kept the criminally insane was dangerous. Psychologists quit on a monthly basis. The staff called in sick a lot or simply quit. People would walk through that ward with their backs against the wall, afraid of being attacked by patients. It was not a pleasant place to live, work, or visit. Dr. Len told me that he never saw patients. He agreed to have an office and to review their files. While he looked at those files, he would work on himself. As he worked on himself, patients began to heal. After a few months, patients that had to be shackled were being allowed to walk freely, he told me. Others who had to be heavily medicated were getting off their medications, and those who had no chance of ever being released were being freed. I was in awe. Not only that, he went on, but the staff began to enjoy coming to work. Absenteeism and turnover disappeared. We ended up with more staff than we needed because patients were being released and all the staff was showing up to work. Today, that ward is closed. This is where I had to ask the million-dollar question. What were you doing within yourself that caused those people to change? I was simply healing the part of me that created them, he said. I didn't understand. Dr. Len explained that total responsibility for your life means that everything in your life, simply because it is in your life, is your responsibility. In a literal sense, the entire world is your creation. Whew, this is tough to swallow. Being responsible for what I say or do is one thing. Being responsible for what everyone in my life says or does is quite another. Yet the truth is this: if you take complete responsibility for your life, then everything you see, hear, taste, touch, or in any way experience is your responsibility, because it is in your life. This means that terrorist activity, the president, the economy, anything you experience and don't like is up for you to heal. They don't exist, in a manner of speaking, except as projections from inside you. The problem isn't with them, it's with you. And to change them, you have to change you. I know this is tough to grasp, let alone accept or actually live. Blame is far easier than total responsibility, but as I spoke with Dr. Len, I began to realize that healing for him and in Ho'oponopono means loving yourself. If you want to improve your life, you have to heal your life. If you want to cure anyone, even a mentally ill criminal, you do it by healing you. I asked Dr. Len how he went about healing himself. What was he doing exactly when he looked at those patients' files? I just kept saying, "I'm sorry," and "I love you," over and over again, he explained. That's it? That's it. Turns out that loving yourself is the greatest way to improve yourself, and as you improve yourself, you improve your world. Let me give you a quick example of how this works. One day, someone sent me an email that upset me. In the past, I would have handled it by working on my emotional hot buttons or by trying to reason with the person who sent the nasty message. This time, I decided to try Dr. Len's method. I kept silently saying, "I'm sorry," and "I love you." I didn't say it to anyone in particular. I was simply evoking the spirit of love to heal within me what was creating the outer circumstance. Within an hour, I got an email from the same person. He apologized for his previous message. Keep in mind that I didn't take any outward action to get that apology. I didn't even write him back. Yet by saying, "I love you," I somehow healed within me what was creating him. I later attended a Ho'oponopono workshop run by Dr. Len. He's now 70 years old, considered a grandfatherly shaman, and is somewhat reclusive. He praised my book, The Attractor Factor. He told me that as I improve myself, my book's vibration will raise, and everyone will feel it when they read it. In short, as I improve, my readers will improve. What about the books that are already sold and out there? I asked. They aren't out there, he explained, once again blowing my mind with his mystic wisdom. They are still in you. In short, there is no out there. It would take a whole book to explain this advanced technique with the depth it deserves. Suffice it to say that whenever you want to improve anything in your life, there's only one place to look: inside you. When you look, do it with love. So that's the article that was written by Joe Vitale about Dr. Ehale Akalahulen. I'm going to keep saying until I get it right. And I don't know when it was actually written, but I did read it about like 2-3 years ago and posted it yet again up on my Lightworkers page because I just thought, that's too good a story to pass up posting somewhere where everybody can see it. I tried this myself when I first read this, and I tried this for a couple months, actually. And I just, like what Joe was saying, I didn't do it, I didn't say it to anyone in particular. I didn't really have anybody in mind. But I guess in the back of my mind, I was kind of thinking of the whole world. You know, if the whole world could be apologized to and told that I loved it, you know, obviously you're healing the part of you that creates everything around you. So I had a girlfriend tell me when I mentioned this to her that something she had heard about the Ho'oponopono method, that the quote-unquote real way, and I don't think there's a real way to do anything. I think it's all dependent upon how you feel. And, you know, sometimes when we make up our own rituals and our own traditions, they mean a lot more than the stuff that's been passed down for generations, because it's the power that you hold, it's the power that you wield, and it's what you believe, you know, it's the person actually doing it. And we can get into rituals at a different time because I've done a few myself that I just made up on the spot, and holy God, they worked. But anyway, back to Ho'oponopono. apparently the way that you're meant to do this is to say, the way that I did it was to have a little conversation with myself. And the way that my girlfriend said people are meant to do this is to actually say out loud, I'm sorry. Will you forgive me? Thank you. I love you. And I tried this myself after I first read Joe's write-up about Ho'oponopono. I tried this myself for a couple of months during meditation. I would just lay in meditation and I would basically have a conversation from myself with myself. And you know what? Probably people who are listening to this have had that experience. So I guess it's not that funny, but when you think about it. So what I would basically do is, I guess what I was doing was having a conversation between my perfect self, my higher self, the one who is in the realm of the absolute, who has learned everything she needs to learn, who knows everything, who is everything. And my quote unquote imperfect self, this Terran earthly being, who has problems and issues and insecurities and questions and doesn't, knows everything and is everything, but doesn't remember that. Because inevitably that's what ends up happening when we come to this physical realm, is that we forget everything that we know, which is everything. And we have to be reminded by people in our lives, or we have to remember it ourselves. So I tried this conversation by myself, listening to two voices going back and forth, both my voice. And the first one saying, I'm sorry. And the second one says, I know, or something of that nature, right? And then the first voice says, will you ever forgive me? And the second voice says, of course. And then the first voice says again, thank you. And the second voice says, you're welcome. And then the first voice says, I love you. And the second voice says, I love you too. And I kept this going over and over and over again. I would do it for maybe 10, 15 minutes in one sitting. So I would have this conversation over and over and over again. Just 8 lines back and forth. And that's it. And I can certainly say that at that time, and I'm going to have to practice this again, at that time, I did see an improvement, not just in the people around me, but in myself, in my own personal self-worth. And I think I mentioned in the last show that the most important thing that we can do, as far as I'm concerned, is to start at home, is to have the conversations at home, is to start the brainstorming and to make the changes at home, because everything you do in your tiny little hub is going to explode in a good way. That energy is going to explode and it's going to affect everything around it. Almost like, well, I don't want to say it's like an atom bomb, because that has very negative consequences, but it is a positive version of an atom bomb, because it lands in one area, like your little home, your little hub, and then it just radiates out. And in this sense, I do like the word radiate. So it just radiates out and it touches whomever is on that same frequency in order to pick it up. So I tried this myself for a while and I definitely saw an improvement. I can say in my own life that there's something else that I've tried this on, and it works really, really, really well. I was listening to a show by Freeman, and if you haven't heard any of Freeman's stuff, I completely, totally recommend. I absolutely love this guy. He's at, I believe it's thefreemanperspective.blogspot.com and also freemantv.com. So just do a Google search for Freeman or for what I just said, and you'll get the exact URLs in case, there's a .org or something in there that I'm missing. But he had a guest on who, I'm really sorry that I can't remember who it was. It was a woman, and that doesn't really narrow it down. But he had a guest on who was talking about chemtrails. And I don't want to make this show all about